Welcome to Perspectives with Willoughby Eastlake City Schools Superintendent, Dr. Patrick Ward. On this podcast, we sit down for honest conversations about education, where we are, where we're going, and how we support every student's learning journey, as well as the educators leading the way. Each episode brings a new voice and a new perspective on student-centered learning, innovation, opportunity, and what it truly means to prepare students for life beyond the classroom. Thanks for listening. Let's dive in.
Hi, Dr. Patrick Ward, and welcome to our Perspectives podcast. With me today is Rebecca Bultsma, AI researcher, enthusiast, and someone who's spent a lot of time in that space. And so welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's just great to be in your district today.
The energy's been infectious for sure. You know, one of the questions we like to start with for guests that come on the podcast is kind of a explanation of your origin story. Like, how did you get to this space and place that you're in right now? Because it's a niche, and it's certainly unique. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
You know, I worked in education for a long time, and I was the director of communications at our district. And just the day that ChatGPT came out, I was immediately fascinated by it. I realized right away that there would be implications for education as soon as I saw a kid on TikTok using it to write an essay. But I realized pretty quickly you completely control it with effective communication. The better you speak to it, the better you ask it questions, kind of like people, the better output you got. And I just dove in, and I have a hard time explaining it other than it hit my palate, right? And I could tell this was going to be a big deal in the future. I couldn't believe more people weren't talking about it because I was trying to learn as much as I could about this new thing, this ChatGPT, and I couldn't find anyone who could explain it to me in regular language, just people who were data scientists who were trying to talk about transformer architecture and things I didn't understand. So I started teaching myself and helping other people explain it in regular language, and just started doing that on my social channels and to people around me. And it turned out there was a lot of people who just really wanted to understand this in an easy way and what it might mean.
So for like our students that might be listening, it sounds like you started on one career path, but ended up in a completely different kind of area of interest. I think there's a lot of lessons for our kids to know that as they're looking at future careers and future pathways, that the job they start might not be the job that they land in. But it sounds like passion and interest and a good question kind of guided you in your journey. What advice would you give kids, looking right now to pick what's next?
It's such an interesting question because there's a lot of talk right now about the future of work and what jobs are going to look like with AI and what's still going to be around and not. And I think the best advice is to always do something that interests you and that you're passionate about and aligns with your skill set. But lean into very specific aspects of that role too. I know some people talk a lot right now about leaning into what they like to call soft skills, right? Being a good communicator, being able to look people in the eye as you're talking to them, being good at problem solving and figuring out how to get through problems and challenges in creative ways. And somebody reframed it for me recently in a way that they called them durable skills. And I liked that better because soft skills sounds kind of weak, and those are going to be the most important skills of the future. Relationality, how we relate to other people, how we show care, and those things are going to be what's important. So I would say a few things. I would say do something you care about, be really good at it, and also understand the technology that is entering into the workforce, into life today, because that combination of something you care about and something you're good at, but also understanding how technology can enhance that, I think is going to be the secret sauce for success in the future.
So we talk a lot about our portrait of a graduate here, which kind of bakes those durable skills right into kind of where we're going as a district. So it's good to hear kind of how that translates, to the real world. It's also good, I think, for people to hear that the human component is really, really important. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I do know that one of the messages we heard today was, fret not, like the things that make us human might be the most important things for us to cling to as we kind of pivot into this new age. So unpack that topic a little bit, because I know that'll be reassuring to people listening to know that being a human being and those like essential components of our experience still are really crucial.
And they really are. I think back to during the pandemic when all we really wanted was to be around people again, right? You just miss those social experiences of going to a concert or a birthday party or just those shared experiences. Even now, when you call customer service, you'd rather just talk to a person. And I think those things are going to be even more important. I think on like a human level, we crave those things. And I think right now we talk a lot about this bright, shiny technology and how it's going to be the future. But I really think we're going to overcorrect far back so that the richest experiences and the people who are the luckiest are the ones that get to have this human interaction and have the human educators and the wisdom that comes from that AI doesn't have, that lived experience. And I think there's so much nuance to that. And I predict we're going to lean more heavily into that than ever, which is why developing the skills that make that interaction possible and meaningful is going to matter so much. I think we've gone away from the person-to-person skills. We're in this era of time where we text, we snap, we email, and we have all these types of written communication, and that's how we're interacting, but it's not personal. And that's why we've ended up in a society where people aren't necessarily kind to each other online because it's depersonalized. But in today's society where we don't know really what's real anymore, if you're getting an email from a bot or a deep fake, this face-to-face interaction is going to matter more than ever, and it's going to be more meaningful. It's the only way you're really going to know that you're interacting with a real person.
I think there's a lot of people out there, especially our teachers and our parents, who feel really comforted knowing that these human-centered principles still will be really important. And so as AI comes on board and we kind of begin to embrace the technology, I think leaning into a paradigm of student-centered and a more personalized experience really is going to be an important platform. So how do you see AI helping make learning more student-centered, or the experience we provide students more personalized?
I think there's a lot of different answers to that question. I think ideally the golden answer, the golden scenario would be a lot of the admin work that really kind of bogs teachers down. Hopefully, we can use AI to support some of that. And then the teacher, in turn, ends up with, 13 extra hours a month or a week or something that they can redirect just directly into FaceTime and interaction with kids. Or kids get to learn using AI in a way that works best for them at home. And then school becomes completely interactive and engaging. And it's very, very easy to build personalized experiences for everyone to learn the actual knowledge, but the actual engaging gets to be more focused on the person-to-person human connection that makes the real difference.
I mean, it's unpopular opinion. People say I would never want to go back and be a kid today, but I'll tell you, I might reject that premise, because if you put me in an environment where it was more personalized and people saw who I was and gave me an education plan that kind of allowed for human potential to flourish, I mean, sign me up. I'd go back in a heartbeat based on my schooling experience. So when we talk about schooling experience, so we're going to take a little hard pivot here. Along the way, think about the educators that impacted you, the ones that stand out in your mind. For me, it was Miss Perseni, second grade teacher to this day. I give her credit anytime I have the opportunity, because she saw some potential in me, and she lit a fire, and she said, "You go do whatever you want, right? Be great." Is there a teacher that comes to mind in your journey that kind of has sparked
100%.
you?
Yeah, Ms. Johnson at Dr. E.P. Scarlett High School in Calgary, Alberta. She was my English teacher, and she took something that I wrote one time and printed it off onto one of those clear overhead sheets and put it up on the overhead protector and marked it with a red pen of all the spots that were so good. And it made me feel so good, like maybe I was good at something, which sometimes you wonder in high school. And I've never been able to find her since. I don't know where she went. I've never been able to thank her in person, but I think about her all the time.
It's often that one spark, that one adult that believes in a kid that can be the difference, right? And so it's always great to honor those greats. back to the meat of the conversation, back to AI, and we talk a lot about the benefits of AI. We talk about the exciting opportunities that AI is going to present. We talk about how it makes people, perhaps more productive or efficient. Like, what are some of the things that we should be also kind of pausing, and considering as kind of just a cautious warning as we proceed forward?
I think there's a lot of things we could talk about, but I think the most important thing just goes back to that humanity aspect again. I think it's going to be even more tempting as AI companions are built into everything, right? Kids' Snapchat has an AI right built into it. So does Meta, the Instagram platforms, all of them. And it's really easy to default to talking to those AI companions because they're always available. They respond immediately. They tell us really what we want to hear, and they make us feel good. And the people in our lives and our relationships are often flawed, right? They are having a bad day. They don't get back to us. They're busy. They tell us hard things we don't want to hear. And so I think the risk is that we start connecting with the AI more than our people, and we become less patient and tolerant of humanity in our lives. And I just think that's a real risk because, again, we've seen the depersonalization that's happened when you're talking to people online that you don't know in real life and how we treat people differently. And I just hope that we get tired of the talking to an AI and become more focused on the actual people. But it's a real risk because kids are often lonely and they don't have very many people they talk to or trust. And so a lot of them are talking to this always-on AI companion. There's actually some really interesting statistics about how many of them have tried it or talked to it on a regular basis for advice. But there's deep flaws in this technology that we've seen. These bots don't necessarily give good advice and don't push kids in the direction of their parents and trusted loved ones. And so there's a lot of risks with that. And then from an education perspective, we really want to make sure kids are learning and they're learning well and deeply instead of just having AI do their work for them and do things the easy, fast way. That productive struggle is so important, and we've engaged in it. Anyone who's ever learned anything understands that. So there are a lot of important things to consider.
So that was really interesting. We learned this morning about the importance of struggling first and then using the tool later. I think there's a lot of practical applications for anyone who's scouring the internet or trying to read and learn on their own in the age where you have like instant access to the answer all the time, or simplification of what used to take a few extra steps to get to. Can you speak to a little bit about that importance of the struggle first and then the tool second, so that we can kind of memorialize kind of what the research is saying on that?
Yeah, and I don't know that they've formalized this specific research. I know there is a lot of research about it, but what I draw from is this idea of a research study from the early 2000s that studied London cab drivers and how they had a hippocampi section of their brain that prevented them from ever getting Alzheimer's because it was so strong because they had to navigate by memory through the streets of London without using a GPS, whereas other cab drivers or bus drivers who used a GPS didn't have the same benefits. And when they dug into it more deeply last year, they realized that idea of thinking through a problem when they pick up a passenger, mapping out the strategy and the route and the way to get there and what the major junctions would be and how to solve the problem before they dive in was very, very valuable. And I think a lot of the messaging early on with AI was just use AI to get you started, have it write an outline for your essay. But it turns out that hard part is the most important part.
Yeah, so what I've heard today is two really encouraging things. One is the struggle and the social component of learning is still really important, and we should lean in and preserve those really important things. But perhaps more significant is the humanity that AI keeps pointing us back to, like human-centered principles and who we are as human beings. And I think there's a lot of lessons for us to draw upon in education as we're trying to negotiate and navigate like these big questions about what's the future classroom look like? How do we serve learners today? And how does AI help accelerate and deepen that? So again, we'll go up, but we'll come back down to the easier questions now. Is there a favorite AI tool or platform that just jumps out that is top of mind?
It honestly depends on the task,
Okay.
right? Like, so
Yeah.
if for fun, you want to generate images. Google Gemini is a great image generator. For like a chatbot or like an AI tool, my favorite is one called Claude.
Okay.
So when ChatGPT first started, there was a group within that company who was like, we think we could do this more ethically. And they broke off and started their own lab. And now it's Claude. And it is very buzzy right now. It's one of the top labs in the world. There's a lot even going on with like the government and Claude. They're taking some very principled stances on how their technology is to be used. But the personality, if we can call it, the vibe of the chatbot when you talk to it is really great. It's almost like each of the major AI tools have their own kind of personality, kind of like when you would call a friend for advice, let's say, or get different perspectives. Sometimes I'll use a bunch of them just to get an idea or some different perspectives, but my default is usually one called Claude.
Oh, that's great. We chose to name this podcast Perspectives because we came at this from a simple belief that the more we talk with people, the more knowledge we can gain, and the better we'll understand the world around us. And so we also lean into this with a perspective of hope. And so when you think about advice you would give to students today, what's top of mind?
I would say focus on the relationships in your life, even though they're complicated, but also lean into how to use AI to enhance what you're doing. So if there's something that you're trying to learn at school, instead of having an AI tool just give you the answer, have it explain it to you. Figure out what your favorite thing is. If you're really into K-pop Demon Hunters, have an AI tool explain that concept or that worksheet or that lesson to you in terms that are interesting to you. If you don't know if an AI tool can help you do something, say, hey, I have to do this thing. How can you help me do it? And it's tempting for all of us, kids and adults, to just have an easy button, right? Something that will just do a thing for us. But in the long term, it's great. And we tell kids this all the time, to kind of work through things and understand it. It's not necessarily as easy, but it's what's going to set you apart in the future, because everyone has something that can give them the answer. What we're going to need in the future is people who understand things, understand how to think, and understand how to relate to people. And I think those are going to be the most important things moving forward.
So you highlight something really significant there, the ability to use your personal interest and content, unlike we've never been able to do it before. That's really exciting because I taught biology back in the day, so I'm thinking about photosynthesis. There's not many ways to make photosynthesis exciting for kids, but now we have the tools to do that. And so I think that's pretty sage advice for our students. When you think of parents, there's another group that I know right there are out there trying to negotiate the same environment, often very busy. What's your advice to parents as we enter this kind of unprecedented era?
I would tell parents that your kids are using AI. Whether you know it or not, there's actually some really interesting statistics about how many parents think their kids are using AI, how many are actually using AI, and both groups agree that parents have no idea how much their kids are using AI. And so your kids are using it. AI is a broad term, right? Like it's not like maybe they're not using ChatGPT, but they might be talking to the AI in their Snapchat. Or, there's all these different ways that they could be using it. And it's hard for parents because, like me, I didn't grow up with social media, right? I didn't have my first email address until college. I just didn't grow up in the same era. So sometimes it's hard to relate and understand. But it's important that we download and experiment with the tools that we know our kids are using so we can understand them. But also, as a parent, these are super useful for you in your personal life too, right? You can have a lot of great tools that will just help you organize your life or organize some of your own interests if you as a parent want to understand something better. Using these tools is the only way to understand, so I'd use them and I'd start conversations with your kids or have your kids show you, hey, have you heard of ChatGPT? Show it to me. How would you use it? Or do you have AI in your Instagram? Show me, explain it to me.
Sounds like a great way to start a conversation sometimes with teenagers who are not too chatty when they're at home about what tools are you using, or even I think about my own children, how do you help me understand the tool, a chance for them to be maybe an expert and showcase the stuff that they're using in their everyday life. which is growing exponentially for sure. The last group I would think about is teachers. They got into this profession with one set of rules around what knowledge is and how content should be delivered. And we've seen like some jumps in the last couple of decades. First Google, like, oh my gosh, now I just put it in a search bar and suddenly everything's there. And now this AI that does some pretty remarkable things. So what advice do you have for teachers as they continue to move through this uncharted territory?
I would say that AI doesn't necessarily change any of the reasons any teacher decided to become a teacher, right? I get to work with the best group in the world that really they're doing what they're doing because they love kids and they want to see kids grow and learn. And this is a great way to do that. But the way that you do that is by loving and caring for kids and by engaging with them and understanding them. And I just don't think AI can do that. I would tell teachers that we've seen a lot of this cycle over the years. There's a book called Oversold and Underused that came out many years ago that talked about how first a TV in every classroom was going to revolutionize education. And then it was going to be a smart board in every classroom. And then it was going to be one iPad per kid and all these things. And the truth is, none of those things changed what really matters in education. It made it so that, honestly, kids crave that and need that more than ever. And so the same advice I would give to students, I'd give to teachers, which is focus on those durable skills that only you can do. I don't foresee a world where any kid grows up and says, you know what, my favorite teacher that changed my life was Claude or ChatGPT, right? Like,
Oh, thank goodness for that, right?
Yeah, because they tell everybody what they want to hear.
Yep.
They think everybody's great. And to see in someone's eyes that they're proud of you or that they see something in you, that's what changes kids' lives. And again, the idyllic version of this is we get more time to do that, and that's what's really going to make a difference. But it's not going to happen accidentally. It's got to be really, really intentional. We've got to use that time that's being freed up intentionally, and we have to, I like to call it, be more radically human than ever before, more intentionally, and every single day.
I think it's pretty hopeful to think about an education system that evolves to, again, prioritize the human part of our work, allows kids to be kids, allows for play to be the norm, allows creativity, communication, critical thinking, those durable skills that ultimately are future-proof. Because we talk a lot about future-proof here. Mm-hmm. We talk about what things can we be doing to assure that no matter what's changing around a student, they're still prepared for the next step on that journey. And so it's really comforting to hear in kind of this conversation, these repeated themes around the human skills, that leaning into the challenges in front of us, but not losing sight of, again, ultimately where we all end up, which is we're people.
Yeah.
And that's good. And so, when you think just generally about the work, what excites you most about what's on the horizon?
I think opportunities for everybody to learn in the way that they learn best. I think there's amazing things related to AI, like major health breakthroughs that we'll see. I think we'll see really great leaps and bounds of this technology really improving people's lives and giving people amazing opportunities. I think there'll be new jobs we haven't even thought of before that will cater to kids in ways that we haven't been able to before. I think we'll see a rise of entrepreneurship where these kids are going to get, instead of deciding, like you and I probably had to, do I want to be like a nurse or a doctor? Like you think there's 5 things to choose from, kids are going to have the opportunity to think bigger and more creatively about what opportunities are available to them. I think opportunities to learn are endless. Even for myself, if there's something I want to learn now, I can do that in a ton of possible ways. And that's exciting to me because this is so democratized. It's available to everybody for free. It's just a matter of spending a little time working on it and figuring it out. But the fact that I always say, what a time to be alive. It's overwhelming, but it's an incredible time in history.
So how young is too young to get kids thinking about, exploring some of these tools from your perspective? We get that question a lot.
It's a good question. I think you're never too young to start having conversations about responsible digital adoption, right? So we know your kid's going to grab your iPad and it's going to be looking at things, and taking every opportunity to be like, well, that might be real, that might not be real. Well, where did this come from? Well, we don't know if it's true or not. Taking opportunities and modeling healthy digital behavior. I think a lot of us as parents who got caught up in this, no one taught us healthy digital skills, right? So we're on our phones and our kids are on our phones. And so making sure we model that, but modeling intentional humanity and relational interactions and the importance of that, I think is going to be more important than ever, because if we don't model it, who will? I think it's going to be hard to stay away from AI because it's baked into everything the kids are already using. But for chatbots and things like that, I just don't know that kids need them as young as we're getting them. You hope in formative years kids go to their parents and trusted adults for advice and not chatbots. We're having conversations around phones, and I think with the phones comes the AI companions, right? Those are kind of part and parcel. So important conversations about what age do you give your kid a phone and access really to the entire world. AI comes with that, but we have to be having those conversations starting really young about digital responsibility, digital citizenship, what we post, what we say, how we act online, how we question what we're looking at. All of those things, I think, start having those conversations right away. These kids are going to grow up in worlds that we can't even imagine. When they're our age, I can't even imagine what the world's going to look like.
Right, and so that could be frightening, but that could also be exciting, right? Mm-hmm. And so knowing that we have to start these conversations earlier, I think, and then giving parents the tools and the permission to have those conversations, I think is going to be really, really important as we move into the next chapter. So we're winding down here, and so there's a couple kind of quick, easier ones because we've been pretty heavy here. We've talked about some really deep AI principles and some really encouraging and hopeful things on the horizon. But let's make it really practical and simple. We talked about the impact teachers have. We talked about your favorite teacher. What was the quality in that teacher that just jumps out that you want others to know? Because I'm sure it's pretty universal.
I think just the fact that she made me feel seen and cared about. And I think, I have 4 kids in college, and our house was kind of the hangout house in our town. And I'm just a firm believer that every kid needs someone who thinks they're awesome who's not their parents. And that is what makes a difference in a kid's life. And so if all of us try and be that for someone else's kid, that's when lives get changed. I really believe that. And again, I don't think a chatbot can do that because they think everybody's awesome. But I have a son who is becoming a teacher. He's doing his last semester of student teaching right now. He just sent me a picture today of him
awesome. Yeah.
At his school that he went to for elementary doing his student teaching. But he's doing that because his life was changed by a teacher who saw something in him. And that is the greatest gift I think you can ever give a kid, a parent, right? Because parents, we need someone else to love our kids when they think we're dumb, or when they're not listening to us. So I would say the most important thing you can do is just make a kid feel seen and cared about.
I think that resonates with any educator listening or any parent out there to know that their child's seen, and there's an adult that will be their champion, and it doesn't always have to be the person coming from the home. And so I think there's nothing more important than making sure that is heard today. Any final parting words of wisdom you have for us? Any insights from your visit today? Because again, we were so grateful that you traveled from Canada to this beautiful weather here, which hopefully did not let you down. We wanted you to feel at home today.
And I do, this beautiful winter wonderland.
And so what final parting words would you have for us, as we think about, again, offering a perspective on this really crucial topic?
I think we've seen cycles like this through history where technology comes along and we think this is it, this is going to change everything, and then it doesn't. It ends up changing things, right? Like you look at social media, there's been a lot of fallout from that. Positive, mostly negative. But it's early enough that we have a chance to steer this. And I think we only do that through awareness and understanding this technology for ourselves. There's really no shortcut to read about this technology. You have to actually do some experimenting with it so that you understand what it is and how it works and what it's capable of. But we can steer it by having conversations just like this. We can steer it by having conversations with our kids, but also in how we interact with each other. I think if we make that the most important thing and start correcting back that way to having conversations like this face to face, I think that's where the real change starts.
And so that's the hope for this podcast, that we'll have conversations with a wide range of folks about important topics and continue to deepen our understanding of what's happening out there so we can improve learning for all kids here. And so we're grateful for your time today. We're grateful for your insight. And we're grateful to kick off this podcast today with Rebecca Bultsma. Thank you for your time. And more importantly, thanks for your insights and perspectives today.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Perspectives. Today's conversation is a reminder that there's no single solution in education, only shared responsibility, thoughtful dialogue, and a commitment to doing what's best for students. We appreciate Rebecca Bultsma for sharing her insights, and we appreciate you for taking the time to listen and reflect with us. Join us next time as we continue exploring new perspectives and shape the future of learning together.